Well, you must get your acorns from Jimbo.
Yeah.
Well done,
Well, I got his illicit pillar this week,
Oh yeah.
and he's selling acorns. They're already beginning to sprout.
Right.
huh? Right.
And yes, and you can have. Well, actually, we've got quite really nice acorns that we can send you in the post.
There you
And,
go.
and yes, if you want some, you need to get them now.
And
Now.
and fleece.
Oh
Fleece
yes,
is
yeah. The big question. The big question is what do you want a light coloured fleece? Do you want a dark coloured fleece? Do you want So they're all going. And we had this one woman who bought our last stock up. She thought our fleeces were so great, so she had 3 of them. And but now all the fleeces that we got are going to be brand new fleeces. They take 45 minutes to shear. They're done by hand. At that moment, I have great sort of dialogue and get close to my sheep and they have an orange afterwards, and I've got to do 20 of them.
Sean with love. Yes.
Sean, no, we haven't got. We did have one called Shauna, but yeah, you can have a choice of sheep's names, but we've only got 2. We've only got 3 that are sort of brownish: Eden, Glow, and one that's already been snatched up by Michelle, who's actually paying for a fleece from me, from her own farm. Don't ask. Don't even go there.
I saw some Jacob's lambs the other day, which is the first time I've seen them, and they were gorgeous.
oh,
Really, because they're for those who don't know, they're brown and white splodgy, and they were just brilliant. Yeah.
oh, I didn't know that, Andy.
If anyone wants the remains of a Jacob sheared sheep that was sheared on Downton Abbey 3, those I sheared 2 sheep on Downton Abbey 3, and I still got some Jacob fleece.
Nice, Jacob. I love Jacob's
That was
fleece.
actually sheared there on Downton Abbey 3. So yes,
As seen on TV.
as seen on TV.
Add another note.
Hang on a minute. Hang on. Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll sign a little bit of paper to attach to the fleece, and you can have it on your wall.
Excellent idea.
Right. Mm.
Excellent idea. Right. Excellent idea. No, good. Right. We love you. Right. Any news from anybody? David?
Oh, no, sorry.
Andy?
There was, but I can't remember what it is now. But,
Oh my
so don't
God,
worry about
not
it. I'll let
another
it. It'll come back to me eventually, or maybe not. I'm getting like that now. So
Yeah.
Oh God. No, not another one. Not another one. Right.
losing the plot.
Drina.
No, no news. Sorry.
No news is good news, Drina. I don't know who said that. I don't know who said that. Right, Margaret.
I just saw on my phone.
You just, my God, did you see the note she just saw on my phone? It was just like one word.
On my
Saw on
phone, it
No, you said
says
saw on my
it's
phone.
talking about the Ness of Brodgar.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh.
They're returning to the Ness of Brodgar in 2026
Now.
following a 3D radar survey that identified a mysterious non-rectangular structure, marking an extraordinary new discovery despite the 2024 completion of major excavations.
Ooh.
And I'm looking. Hang on, I thought the excavations completed last year. Have I lost a year somewhere?
No, they said that though. Said following the completion of it, they've done a survey and found this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the archaeological work. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, yeah. That's
So they're going to
right.
have to start again, aren't they?
So they're going back again.
Yeah, that's a good excuse. I bet they knew that all along.
Exactly. I would introduce you to the archaeologist who excavates there, and he's actually got a flock of sheep as well.
Right.
It's a bit strange that Nick Card has got his own archaeological site, plus he's got a flock of sheep. Do you notice the parallel?
What sheep does he have?
Oh, normal sheep. I think.
Oh, that doesn't count. He's got to have at least historic ones.
No, he's got Shetland sheep. They ain't historic.
Oh, okay.
No.
Do you know? I went into a museum near me in the Carmarthen Museum, and And they said, oh, the archaeologist wanted to meet you today, but she's not here today. And I said, well, why? And she said, oh, well, she's had some lambs. And I just said, hang on a minute, I got sheep as well. And the woman looked at me, she said, what is it about you archaeologists? You all seem to have flocks of sheep.
Mm.
It's the easiest way to take the thick grass off the top of the site you're working on.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. I told you that.
Yes, I understand. I just repeating your words. I was listening.
Oh my God, that's amazing, because nobody ever learns anything in these classes. At least that for the first time in 10 years, somebody has actually remembered something I've said.
Sorry,
Right,
did you
okay.
say something? Yes.
Shut up, Andy.
Sorry.
No, yeah, right. Okay, who have we got next? Right, George, anything you would want to... Right, George is posting on our Facebook page still, which is really good. So,
Yeah, actually, if you look at the Richborough, Lime and Reculver, the 3 videos,
Yeah.
the last video at the tail end of the video has maybe 8 or 10 stills of Google Earth captures around those areas.
I
And
didn't see
again,
that.
significantly, there may well be other Roman remains or earlier in those particular areas. And again, somebody needs to go and look at it and say, yeah, what's at the site? So
Yeah, talking about archaeology. We'll listen to Roger and Judith in a minute, because we like our Roger and Judith. I've just, because I'm actually in the middle of well, when I say I'm in the middle of completing a book, the book is almost the first, all the stuff is in it, right, by the end of the week, right, and now I've got to sort of make sure that everything's in place, and I've got to make sure all the images and stuff in there, and there's a point to this. So that'll be my next book out, which should be done and dusted with the printer in the next 4 months, which is really good. I want to get the book done because Richard, who's been working on it with me for the past 10 years, isn't the most healthiest bloke sometimes. So I just want to get it done before anything happens to him, because his wife won't forgive me. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is that I'm going to start some archaeological work in West Wales, and I'm just going to basically think, right, I'm going to basically do most of it myself, simply because I can really get into it, and I'll be able to report to you via these sessions every week with an image of what I've been doing, right? And that ties in with what I said earlier on. The sheep they've shorn the ground, so perfect for the work. It's all coming together. And the Illicig pillar that you've all should have had by now, or maybe one or two of you are a bit late getting it. I'm starting to do some of my archaeological report writing again, so that's going to be in there again. So we've got another musket ball, which I've reported on in the next edition, which I've already written up. And it seems that we've got a site somewhere in South Wales that there's musket balls being found in the field, which it might be an unidentified British Civil War battlefield. You've heard it. I'm not going to tell you where it is, Pentleen, but there you go.
How do you know it's a musket ball and not just a chunk of metal?
Because I've got several of them, and they've identified. But I'm a published archaeologist, for God's sake. I published the last one. Don't you ever go at me? And I've got another one that I've published now. So don't you bang. Sorry. Do you know what really gets me about publishing archaeological work? Right, I've just grabbed. Where is it now? Oh yes, I've just grabbed the late. I was just sent the latest edition of this, which is Archaeology Wales, right? And the first page I turned to, which again has happened, is one of my reports in here, right? Which is great. And I thought, why have they published the most boringest report ever in here, right? Which I've done. And it went to the one that I spent hours doing, and they've hardly written anything on it. It really annoys me, that does. So if it's boring, they publish it. And if it's not boring, I'm not saying that I publish boring stuff, which I do. Anyway. Anyway, did you see what happened there, Drina? Did you see what happened there? Right, Judith, anything you want to say? Oh, by the way, Judith has been getting things in the post off me. Haven't you, Judith?
I found one thing. Oh, where have you gone? Are you still there? Sorry, something's happened.
You've got something else in the post as well, love.
Oh, have I? It's not arrived yet. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. And yeah, it is. It's got a picture of a Fraggle on it. Anything you want to say, love?
No news, I'm afraid.
Okay. And Roger, anything from you, babe?
No, okay.
Right. Okay. What I thought tonight is I'm going to do a bit on the A66, which is the Roman archaeology that's been found there, and we're going to look at some Roman sites in Germany. And the reason why I'm doing Roman sites in Germany, I will tell you now, before you're thinking, why are we doing Roman sites in Germany? Because I just wanted to look at some bits of one Roman site in Germany and a couple of others. And the point I'm trying to make, before we get onto it, without anyone putting out all the dots together, is that I thought that why is the archaeology of the Roman era in Germany, right, much more spectacular than the Roman archaeology in Britain? And that's the point I'm trying to make. Why? And then you start to put all the sort of bits together, and you start to realize maybe Britain wasn't, as important to the Romans as is made out. And even though it's what we're doing, it's what we're studying, and I love my bits of Roman wall, right? But when you compare it to somewhere like Germany, that is actually, you don't necessarily think of Germany actually having any Roman remains, which it does. You'll see my point. So we're gonna crack onto that, and whilst I'm doing that, I'm gonna multitask, and I'm going to plug my thingamajig into my doodah to make sure I don't lose power. And we've actually got Wi-Fi, a Wi-Fi for the first time in bloody ages. Yeah, my French. And we're gonna be looking at this. We're not gonna actually be looking at this in great detail, with all honesty with you. And I'm just gonna move to get my thingamajig charged. Right, so that's good. Hopefully everything's still working. So this itself is a place that I can never get the pronunciation right in Germany, called Trier. And I know that our German guy tomorrow will probably correct me and say you're pronouncing it all wrong. And one thing I did was to basically say, one thing I said to myself was that why are the lights flickering? One thing I said to myself is, if you just typed into the internet significant Roman remains in Germany, right, you get places like this. And this is a gateway. And if I did a whole talk on this, which I could do, I'm capable of doing a whole hour on this one building. Most of it was buried, in the ground, right? And this is why it's coming out as looking like this today. This is the Roman gateway in Germany. And the point I wanted to, the other thing I wanted to say is that you've got some of the best Roman archaeology. If you want to compare sort of Germany, northern France and Britain, some of the best stuff in regards to the Roman world in those three areas is actually in Germany. This is in an area, right, that has been fought over and over again, but these remains have survived. Most of the big Roman remains in Germany are naturally protected, and like lots of ours are in Britain. And this in particular is a UNESCO listed World Heritage Site. So what we've got in regards to the archaeology of the Roman remains in Germany is that we've got lots of forts. When I say lots of forts, this Germany's got the equivalent of, well, actually you could call it the Germans' Hadrian Wall. It's called the Limes, which I've mentioned before. There's more forts along the sort of German frontier with the Roman Empire within Germany and Germanicus, the further on beyond that than you can count in Britain, along Hadrian's Wall and the Antonine Wall. And I don't know, it hit me yesterday. I don't know, yesterday in the news, it was reported that they've actually found another little fortlet which they didn't know existed along the Antonine Wall. I don't know if any of you spotted that, but that's something that they've actually just come across now. So we go to Trier. There's Cologne. There's the Salzburg Fort. Lots of these we just don't really have time to look at tonight. So I'm going to come back to some of these next week. But we're going to look at Trier, Augusta Trevirorum, Augusta Trevirorum, and you'll notice like some of these place names, like Trier, Augusta Trevirorum, Augusta, the Roman Emperor Augusta, Cologne, associated with Claudius or Claudia, and then you've got Yanten, Xanten. I don't know how you pronounce these things. Yanten. It sounds like a place in China. That's a colony associated with Trajan, and we've also mentioned Mogontiacum, which is actually the base of the 22nd Roman legion that was established by the likes of Caligula. We're back to Caligula, and I was meant to be doing that video, that really polished, well put together, scripted 8-minute video about my thoughts, the only video actually anywhere about an archaeologist saying that Emperor Caligula did invade Britain, right? I haven't actually got that done yet, completed. It's been a bit more work than I thought. What, Rog?
This building, what is it? A gatehouse come?
Yeah, it's a gateway. We're going to do that now. We're going to do that now, Rog. So don't get too carried away, Rog. You always get too carried away, Rog.
It's all a Roman building, is it?
It's a Roman building, Rog. It's there.
Amazing what's left.
Well, yeah, exactly. What's left, and so what we've got the Augusta Trevirorum. Nice one, isn't it? A Trevirorum, an Augusta Trevirorum, the city of Augusta in the land of the Treveri, and that's one of the things that I think maybe I should point out that straight away. When you look at the names of Roman cities, in most places they usually grab something local, like when you've got this place, the land of the Treveri, right? And then when you're thinking, say for example, Roger will come up with a good example. When you look at Caerwent, the city of Caerwent in South Wales, and you're talking about the city of the Venta Silurum, and you know the city of the people's name that the Romans gave to the local area, the Siluris. We know the Romans gave the name to the local people rather than the local people giving the name, but they put that in the name of the city, right? And it's the same as Aqua Sulis, which basically takes a little bit of a local god and puts it into the place name. So the Romans were really good at this. And when if anyone wants to know where this place is, which I should do now, and which is there, and hang on, there it is. It's there, and you're thinking Belgium, you're thinking about Luxembourg, you're thinking about Germany, and this place survived. You know, it actually survived bombing and war, and that gateway that you've seen, it survived. And it's not just that building, there are other buildings which are absolutely amazing. And if you I tell you what, maybe what I might do is give you a little bit more information, a little bit more of a talk about this structure next week, and maybe show you some images of the archaeology, because this was cladded. My French, excuse him, but it was cladded in crap, and that's what kept this gateway. You know, it's a very amazingly fine gateway. Look at that, absolutely unbelievable. And I've heard it referred to as the Black Gateway because it looks black, it's dark. So the one thing about this is, if we like many things that we get with Roman sites, is that we get people putting plans together, and you know, and it's like what we do have. Yes, we've got the gateway there, which is what we've just been looking at. We've also got an amphitheater on the right there. We've got palace buildings. We've got loads of stuff in this one site, and lots of it is available for people to see, right? And you've got this sort of list here, you know, and this site itself, there's got this site, for example, that is is going to outplay anything that we've got in Britain. And you might be thinking, hang on, Carl, just why are you having a go at the British story? And the reason why I'm having a go at the British story is I'm always wondering why, for example, we don't have these great structures in Britain as we see on the continent. And I usually give up so many different reasons and things for that. But anyway, when we think about this itself is within a landscape. This gateway itself is within a landscape of a city that was founded in the reign of Augustus, roughly around 18 years BC. And this is the place of the first Roman bridge. There's a Roman bridge that goes over the amazing river there. So what we've got the foundation around basically 18 years BC. And the amazing river is the Moselle River. And obviously we've already seen on a map, you've got Luxembourg, Belgium a bit further up, and this is sort of in that sort of Rhineland area, sort of, in there, well thought over area of history. And the one thing about Trier itself is it ties in with other names in history, like the Holy Roman Empire, which is like a religious empire that's set up after the collapse of Rome in the West in 476. You've got all those different things. And Trier itself is a civitas. And that's another key word, the civitas. What does a civitas mean? So if we were going to talk about the names that we use when we're explaining about archaeology, we all know what a fort is, but what is a coloni? So a coloni itself is a place set up for Roman veterans, like Linden, Lincoln, like Camel and Junum, Colchester. That's a coloni for veterans to settle at. And then you've got something, I use the word vicus. Now the word vicus is associated with the fact that you might have Bird Oswald, you might have the likes of Great Chesters, where you've got like a vicus around, which is like a civilian settlement supporting the Roman military. And you might get something like Eboracum, which started off as a legionary site that became a civitas. You've got places like Londinium, that's a civitas, which basically a civitas is a city. So this site itself is known as a civitas of the Trevi people, the Treverians. It sounds like something out of a space movie. And what we're talking about are thousands and thousands of people are living in these localities. And I think the point is this is in a border area, a well thought over area within within that time as well. And we're talking about this city itself is going into the 100s, the 200s, the 300s and the 400s. And it's a place that had a link with great people like Constantine the Great. And when you think about it, the Trier itself is sort of in the northern part of, this is a palace, this is one of the great sort of palacey type structures. And this is all part of where emperors went to. Emperors of the Roman Empire went to Germany, Trier, to sort of sit over their world, their landscape. And this itself, these buildings are massively important when we think about sort of understanding other parts of the Roman world that we don't immediately think about. So you think of when you open the idea of the Roman world, it's as we've done for month after month after month. It's all these different things. So this is the Porta Nigra, yeah, and this is the Porta Nigra, and this building is the Imperial Baths, part of the Imperial Palace complex where Constantine the Great would have been here. And when you look at this gateway, right, this is the gateway that would have welcomed some of the great names in history. So you look, Joe, just to do a talk on the sort of the Imperial Baths associated with the Imperial Palace itself. I could just do a talk on these remains, and again maybe we'll come back to that next week. So unlike almost all other Roman cities in today's Germany, Augustus Treverorum did not belong to one of the two Germanic provinces, but this itself actually was part of the Gallic province, not the Germanic provinces that the Romans had established. The problem is with the Roman world and Germanicus, it was always a place that the Romans fought over. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the film The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, and I think that's 1969, and you got Christopher Plummer, who plays the terrible and dastardly figure of Commodus. Right, it's one of my all-time favorite films, and it's based around this landscape. It's based around Trier. It's based around sort of this sort of this world that the Romans tried to sort of gather together. So the Romans, what the Romans are trying to do in regards to Gaul, it's already part of their world. With Germanicus itself, the German world, you've always got problems. And to sort of put it in a nutshell, the great Emperor Hadrian was campaigning against the people. When you think about, there's an image here. This is just part of what we're talking about. And Mainz, there you go. That's the site of the base of the 22nd Legion. And when you think about this, these are all, look at these forts all the way down. You know, all the way down. This is the limes. The Romans had great names like Germanius Inferior, Germanus Superior. It's the same thing in Britain. We had Britannicus Inferior, Britannicus Superior. You know, we had this as well, and again, to sort of capitalize on what I'm trying to say is that when you think about Rome was always managing its frontiers. And when it's managing its frontiers, it needs thousands and thousands of troops to do so. Now, at its maximum height, the Roman Empire had in service 250,000 legionaries, which were probably supported by 250,000 auxiliaries. If you could work out the maths on that, you could probably work out that the Roman army had 500,000 troops to try and defend its frontier. Now, the British Army at this minute, it's all over the place, and we've got 70,000 men, right? So the Roman army, if you want to compare that with the existing British army today, our army today is tiny, right? And having an army of 500,000 soldiers, and a big chunk of them were basically based on the frontiers, were based on within this frontier. This is a frontier that let's just talk about a few Hollywood things. Let's talk about Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire again. Christopher Plummer playing Commodus, and then you go into Gladiator, yeah, and Russell Crowe, and you're talking about the likes of Joaquin Phoenix and all the rest of all these figures, and that's based around Marcus Aurelius of the likes of the 180s, and none of these great people like Marcus Aurelius in the 180s and his death could not contain the Germans. And before that, you're talking about Hadrian in his limes, his frontier, his forts that he constructed along vast river systems and then sort of across woodlands and forests and mountain areas and all the rest of it. This was a defensive frontier, which would be the Achilles heel of the Roman world itself. So when we think of, there's going to be an image coming up, right? And I think Andy's going to love this one. And Andy's going to say, I've seen that before. This image here. This is the Nijmegen wine ship. And again, Andy, yes, you are right. This is what you saw on Trajan's column, or a replica of which was carved into Trajan's column. And things like this are great. You know, the Nijmegen wine ship. There's a whole thing associated with this. And when you think one thing that we can learn in history is from carvings, and not by written history, but by what we're seeing. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the archaeology. The archaeology is talking for us, not the history. We're not doing history, doing archaeology. And when we did Trajan's column, we looked at images like this carved in relief on Trajan's Column, and we said, oh, look at all the barrels, you know, and it you know, the typical sort of Rhine Danube vessels trading barrels of all sorts of stuff. And usually when we think about Roman vessels, we're thinking about the likes of amphora. We're thinking how the amphoras stacked in boats and all the rest of it, right? But they had barrels. We did actually say, I think we said last week that the British kept their beer and stuff in barrels, and that's something that was introduced to the Romans. It's not exactly true, but it's not true at all, because the Romans are obviously trading in barrels well before that. But it's that sort of cultural thing, you know. Wood doesn't really survive where amphora does, and we think that the Roman world is transporting its stuff around in just amphora when it's not. It's using barrels as well. So sort of a little bit of a treat here. Look at this. This is known as the Gelduba, basically sort of vessel. Okay, this is known as the Trier saying cup, named after the Gelduba, and this Trier saying cup. And look at that there. It's obviously telling you a message of the Roman world with Latin. And again, this is approaching sort of the reason why we got Trier, and the reason why we got Trier and trade, and the reason why we got this communication between the Germanic world towards the east and the Roman world in the west, and the border area, and this continuous sort of reaction between these two worlds. And you could say that the Germanic Empire would be what brought the empire down, but that's not what I say. It was, in fact, it was the Romans bringing in lots of people from beyond the Germanic Empire to fight within its armies. These would be the generals, and then these would be the people who would eventually sort of bring a downfall of the Roman Empire. So again, we're looking at coins. We're looking at the links with Roman imperial edicts. This is a coin of Constantine the Great, and we know that Constantine the Great died in the year 337. That was in Constantinople. However, Constantine the Great was at Trier, and this is a coin from the Trier mint, and really nice phallus. This is the lowest of the low coins, but it's a really nice minted coin from 337. Again, Trier mint. So the one thing that we do see with places like Trier, again, it's up in the north. It's up in the northeastern area of the Roman Empire. It's on the Germanic frontier, Trier. And the interesting thing is that Constantine the Great's son, Constantine II, would be, this is the place that he would make his home, right? Not Constantinople in the east, not Rome itself. And that's another point, that Rome is not always administered from Rome itself. It's sometimes administered from other localities, like this locality, like Trier. And we think about the Trier mint, and this is the thing. Again, we're taking the message of understanding the Roman world, and I've mentioned this before. You've got the Londinium mint, you've got coins being issued there, you've got coins being mentioned, minted in all the way across the Roman world, Antioch, Lyon, Rome, and Trier as well. And when you've got emperors minting coins in certain localities, it means it gives those localities a certain sense of prowess, a certain sense of kudos. So again, beautiful. One thing that we could say about the Roman world, again, another coin minted. This is minted by another Roman emperor, sort of taking us into little bits. So we've got buildings today, we've got a bit of pottery, we've got coins. Again, just one locality in the Roman world, so the imperial mint, the imperial sense. And this is a coin of Valentinian II, and this is when Roman coins themselves started to sort of alter. This is known as a solidus. This coin itself was probably this would be minted by the year 392. And again, where you get coins that are being minted in certain localities and in certain places, it means it gives them a sense of status. And I'm mentioning this as well when we look at the likes of Septimus Severus, and he's dying in York in 211, and then you've got Caracalla, and then we think about York itself. Eboracum was the center of the Roman Empire for a very short period of time. Everything was administered from Eboracum, York, for a very short period of time, under the late reign of Septimus Severus and the likes of Caracalla. And it's the same with Trier. It's telling you that story tonight. It's saying that Rome is not just about Rome. It's about everywhere. It's about lots of localities. Rome is not just one place. I am not Rome. We are all Rome. And Trier, and telling that message, telling that story by what you're doing, Rome is within our hearts, is within everywhere. And going back to the imperial bars associated with the imperial palace, and then moving on, and you know, one thing I do like is when they sort of I like this reconstruction. It looks good, and Trier probably looked like this. And one of the things with the amphitheater, it's sort of associated with the within the wall defenses of Trier itself. Very, very interesting. That we saw that from the plan earlier on. So if we see that, the Romans didn't do things by copybook. And we're back to this image. You can see the amphitheater there. It's actually part of the overall defenses within the defensive wall that went around Trier. And let's just talk about standards. It's not playing card shape. It's rounded walls. It sort of follows the contour of the landscape, follows the contour of the river. And one thing that probably makes it Roman more than anything is the type of buildings. So towards the center, you've got the important places, the forum. In this case, you've got a palace. Usually the amphitheater is usually towards the outside of the city. On this case, it's sort of within and without. And one thing that we do have is one thing that makes Roman cities stand out is those black little dots. Those black little dots themselves represent the mausolea, the burial. And again, burials took place and were to be placed outside cities. And one little clue to understanding archaeology. If somebody's excavating and they, for example, find Roman burials within a Roman city, the answer to that is that the Roman city was once small, and then on the outside of the city there would be burials. Well, the city decided to expand, and they built on those burial areas. And we see this a lot with Eboracum, York. We see this when we're excavating York. We find burials in areas that we think, well, why are burials here when there's a Roman house? Because that's a sign that the city had expanded. And we're going to see that at places like Carlisle as well. Now, usual typical with any of these places, a nice little bit of an inscription there. And again, this is associated with a sort of usurper type general known as Victorinus. And Victorinus was one of those people that decided to usurp control and decided to make himself his own Roman emperor for a while, in protest to the main Roman sort of imperial thing. We actually find lots of things from inscriptions and sort of lots of that sort of idea. Again, our wonderful gateway here. Something that yes, I will come back to, the Porta Nigra. And again, this is from the city side. So the side that we've seen is the external side, and this is the city side. And look at that there. You're thinking, right, let's just tease a little bit of a question. Did we have any gateways like this in Britain? The archaeological evidence is saying that we didn't, right? And we had double gateways in Britain. Yes, they did exist. We're usually what we might find is we might find a traffic gateway and we might find a pedestrian gateway. Well, this one's got an in and out basically, and it's all made of solid stone, and it's really, really well built. It survived bombing. It survived all those different things, and you can get an idea of what this may have looked like, because this would have been the surface of this would have been a lot more polished, a lot more clearer. It wouldn't have been dark and sort of looking like this. But when we think about archaeology, we never think about anything like this, because we're usually thinking about our own archaeology, our own sort of reflections on what archaeology should look like. So when we see something like this in Germany, in Trier, it makes us think differently. It makes us think, well, okay, Hadrian's Wall, okay, it's not really, doesn't really compare with anything like this. The closest that we've got of this in Britain is the Newport Gate in Lincoln, and the Balkan Gate, which we got the pedestrian access, which still survives in Colchester, and we got a few blocked up doorways and stuff, and we got a few other arches in Britain, but that's it. And this is without doubt very impressive. And yeah, we'll have a little look at this next week. So another thing, amphitheaters. Now, this is one thing that the Roman world is very much full of, amphitheaters. And I keep saying to Michelle, why do we go over to Spain? Let's have a holiday in Spain. She said, I'm not going there because of the bullfighting, right? And interestingly enough, lots of the amphitheaters that they use in Spain for bullfighting originally started their life as Roman amphitheaters. I kid you not. So even though this isn't really being used anymore, because, you know, it's earthen banking with grass, again, this is quite a big sort of piece of archaeology. And again, what comparisons have we got to this in Great Britain? So let's just talk. Before you say it, Roger, yes, we got the amphitheatre at Killeen. Yeah, we got the Guildhall bit of amphitheatre in Londinium. I don't know if any of you have seen that. Under the Guildhall in London, you got a bit of the amphitheatre. I remember that when that was found. A big chunk of that in the 1980s. And you've got the amphitheatre, which is really sort of half of that is on show in Diva Chester. Interesting enough, we've got another amphitheatre on show in West Wales, which is similar to this, which is much smaller than this. Before anyone says anything, we got that at Carmarthen, and the one thing. And then when you're thinking about other amphitheatres, you've got one in Dorchester, which is like a big donut, which creates a sort of traffic island in Dorchester, and then you've got one or two little bits of amphitheatre elsewhere, but we don't really have anything like this. Even the one in Camel and Juneham, Colchester, it's lined out on the grass. It's not like this. So I think that maybe what I'm getting at, and obviously as we go forward and we look more at Roman era Britain, we can think that we were very different, and what we were doing and what we were seeing and what we were telling the world was again our interpretation of what the Roman world was about. This is the types of things that you would see in a place like this, and this again, beautiful mosaic, the fine detail of this mosaic in Trier. And when again we're bound to expect to find these things, but folks, we do have some extremely fine mosaics in Britain, without doubt. I will say that we've got some of the finest mosaics that I've actually found. I remember when I was going into the British Museum, and I went with my grandparents. I remember going when I was 11, and you got some. That's one thing that we do have in Britain: mosaics. We really, really do. We've got lots of examples of mosaics. If we go down to Chedworth, the Roman villa, you can go to Lillingston as well in Kent. You can think about, before you say it, Roger, I know you've been there. The mosaics at Fishbourne. We got lots of localities in Britain where we got beautiful mosaics. That's one thing that we can say that we do have. Again, we can say, right, look at our mosaics. We've got some really fine detailed mosaics in Britain, and I think one thing that makes the Roman, if somebody asked me what is the one thing that is really, really Roman, right, and I would say mosaics. That's one thing that I would say. The obsession with mosaics. Obviously frescoes, we do have evidence of frescoes across lots of the Roman world, including Britain, but mosaics themselves really, really tell the Roman story. It's the Roman, it's the be all and end all. And when I remember saying, did I say this to you guys last week, that there's a Roman villa in England somewhere, which I really wish I knew the locality now, and they built a Roman villa, and they built a hypercore system, but they never actually used the hypercore system to heat the house. But what they do have is mosaics, and I think it's the one thing that does stand out. The one thing, again, I'll repeat that, the one thing that is Roman is the mosaics. And if you can see Latin on mosaics, you can see the Greek on mosaics, you can see sort of other script on mosaics all the way across the Roman world. And it's the stories, it's the same stories over and over again. Mythology, and it's one thing that we all want to sign into. It's the human story, isn't it? The way of being able to tell stories. So this is associated with Polydus, the Polydus mosaic, which is in Trier itself. Now, the one thing that we do have, again, that what we can compare with, is that in Britain we got lots of things like this. In Trier they do as well. So this is the thermal baths, and we got these nice sort of thermal baths in Trier itself. I don't know if they're not sort of typical thermal in regards to thermal springs that we got in Britain, but again, what we've got is a number of baths that are being found in Trier itself, and this is one that is associated with a development. And look at this, all this sort of stuff that you can see. Now, this is what we're doing a lot in Britain now as well, particularly in London. Now, I've never actually sat down and worked this out, but there are about 20 sites in London that are underneath office blocks, car parks, Bloomsbury building. That's a really good example, but you get stuff underground in London a lot. There's about 20 sites. I couldn't name them all now, and I don't think I know where they all are, but this is what they are. This is what they've done a lot of in places like Germany, where you've got this is saved. You can see it. You can go down underground, and one of the things that the Germans have realized is it's better to have archaeology like this within a landscape which is part of the let's just show you something a minute to make the point, right? That's not part of people's lives, right? But that is. And they've made the Roman world now today. This is, I think, what we're doing, realizing in archaeology. If archaeology is going to be relevant, you need to make it part of our lives. You need to sort of, I'm going to go down there and sit with the Roman ruins, and it's nice and quiet with a bit of light coming down, experience a bit of history, all weathers, eat my sandwiches down there. You can't really do that with this, because the one thing about presenting archaeology like this, and the Germans are really good at this, like we're getting really good at this as well. Braden Roman Villa, brilliant example of sort of a thing under sort of cover, and it's sort of brilliant, right? Having sites undercover is so important. Is the way that we need to connect history. Some people say, oh, why is history archaeology isn't really relevant because it's not doing anything for the community. That is. Right, so we're finding these things, and the developers are saying, actually, that's, you know, wouldn't it be great when we're actually building the tower block or whatever we've got? Why don't we actually sort of make this relevant? And this is the type of stuff that we might see, you know, around the back end. So they again, we've got places like this in Londinium that are sort of all overgrown. We've got places like this in Eberach, and we've got places like this all over Cumbria and all sorts of things. But when you actually protect them properly, it makes them so much connected with us. You know, that sort of sense undercover, and it's sort of real. It's a bit of history. So this is the contrast to how they present things in Germany. One thing absolutely brilliant. Another thing, what they're doing elsewhere. This is known as the Barbara Baths. Interesting enough, I had a conversation with Barbara earlier on. Roger, if you remember Barbara, and and when you when yes, this is known as the Trier Gold Hoard. It's amazing there. It's just sort of, it makes your eyes wonder, right? And the Trier Gold Hoard, and I'm actually pretty sure that nothing like this has been found in Britain. Yes, we have got coin hoards in Britain. I think the biggest coin hoard in Britain had 55,000 coins in it, but they were all sort of, as we would call them, grots, folluses, basically, you know, not worth a lot of money, but when you think about this, you know, not worth a lot of money then and not worth a lot of money now, but this, something like this, the Trier Gold Hoard, right? And you're thinking, this, amazingly enough, is nearly 19 kilograms of gold, and it was found in 1993. And there's 200. Start again. I'm looking at my notes here. It says the Trier Gold Hoard. It's either 2,516 or 2,518 coins. I don't know how they've got that. I don't know how they made that mistake, right? But just think about it. It's just amazing. And the hoard itself, the entire hoard is on display in the Trier Museum. The whole hoard. It's just amazing, right? And again, found in 1993 as part of you know, the story is they were digging in Trier, right, and the construction works, right, you can imagine this, can't you? It's the 9th of September, here's the day, let's set the scene. So there's an excavator in Trier itself, and they're unearthing and ripping apart a bronze cauldron, and then suddenly spewing out thousands of coins out of this bronze cauldron. And interesting enough, initially it was unnoticed. Nobody noticed that there was gold coins pouring out of it. After the first coins were detected at the excavation site, treasure hunters also began to search the earth at the dump. And amateur archaeologists went in there, and it was just amazing that they realised that this is, you know, this is there. And interesting enough, they've got a different way of doing things in Germany. It was found by an amateur archaeologist. No, start again. No, it was found by a developer, right, who then asked an amateur archaeologist in, and then the amateur archaeologist informed the authorities of his discovery and received 20,000 Deutschmarks, which is, to be honest with you, not a lot of money, a fraction of the estimated worth. It needs to be stated that as prescribed by local law, archaeologists had first explored the site but stated that no artifacts were present and construction could commence. Initial attempts to discredit the finders as looters were therefore unsuccessful. So in other words, it's sort of by the by there, but amazingly enough, this coin hoard itself, again in Trier, this coin itself, the earliest coins in the hoard date from AD 63, during the reign of Nero. 99% of the coins were minted before AD 167, so it's a coin hoard that's got emperors from over 100 years in it. And actually there was a few coins that were found in here which were dated a little bit later as well, from the AD 196, which were put into the reign of Septimus Severus. and 40 Roman emperors were represented in this coin hoard. 40 Roman emperors. Amazingly, that 40. Imagine it'd be a coin collector's thing, and it's likely related to the Roman emperors Marcus Aurelius, because there was a plague in the reign of Marcus Aurelius, and it's very, very, very likely that the hoard was actually buried in his reign. And again, all these different coins, it's just amazing. Little bit of a story there, folks. I've just spent a bit too much more time on that than I should have. Anyway, so let's just crack on and finish Trier now. And now they have little weird things there as well. They've got a little bit of a spring associated with the Roman history. They got a bit of a spring, and they found lots of sort of artifacts associated with this sort of spring and temple. Again, it doesn't look like anything special, but that's what they've got there. And again, this interesting bridge, the Roman bridge itself. So the footings are based, those oh God, I knew the name for those piers. There's a certain name for them, but anyway, those piers themselves are basically Roman piers. And have we got anything like this in Britain? Yes, we do. We've got some stuff up. We've got some stuff up north, but we've got some places known as Pierce Bridge. And if anyone actually follows me on YouTube, I did Pierce Bridge today. Now, Pierce Bridge is a really interesting example of a Roman bridge in Britain, and there's the elusive Roman bridges in Britain. So it's like trying to find the Roman bridge that went over the River Thames. Where is it? And maybe Roger would say, finding the Roman bridge going over the River Us to the Roman site to Killeen. But we do actually have the remains of a Roman bridge, or some of the piers of the Roman bridge at Pierce Bridge. Again, piers at Pierce Bridge, the Roman bridge. And that I just did that on my YouTube today. I did a sort of like 1 minute video if anyone's interested. But again, a Roman bridge, a Roman proper bridge. Okay, yeah, if you go to Rome, you can actually get an intact bridge over the River Tiber. But this is really interesting that they originally knew that the stone bridge originally started off as a wooden bridge. Because how do we know that? Because they've actually found some of the original foundation bridge piles that then led to the stone piers being placed in. And obviously, as you know, the Romans had a form of concrete that could set underwater, so these piers would be no problem. Obviously, they'd have to do it in the summer, when it's like when it's not rushing water. But again, this one site was meant here tonight to sort of give you a little bit of a taste outside the sort of Roman world of Roman era Britain. And again, looking at this now, there's a little story within a story here, and I know little bits of this have been reconstructed. So obviously the imperial baths associated with palace, and we've got this as well. The imperial palace are one of the most famous Roman buildings in Trier, but not the only one. And the time of the construction is not completely clear. And interesting enough, obviously there's bath buildings and stuff here, but we know that this is constructed not in the AD 100s, not in the AD 200s, towards the AD 300s, right, which is AD 294. And this is directly associated with a Roman emperor, right, visiting this site to try and deal with the usurper Roman emperor in Britain known as Carausius, who was actually assassinated 1 year before this was being constructed in 294. So according to its original conception, this was seen as one of the largest buildings of its kind in the Roman world. There is a Roman bath complex, Caracalla's Roman bath complex, outside the likes of Rome, but this was one of the bigger ones. And it just makes you wonder again, what the Romans are doing, they're spreading the idea of Rome all the way around their empire. If I just sat down and gave you one image of every single Roman important city, town, we would be here until 12 o'clock. There are so many of them, just to sort of think about that. And what they've got so much information. They've got, says the reconstruction of, for example, they're saying like a bit of a shop front entrance, very, very interesting, very, very odd that. However, we've got another building that is naturally unbelievable as well. It's known as the Palace Julia, and look at this. Can't make this up. The Palace Julia was probably erected as a building sometime in about the 300s in the reign of the great Emperor Diocletian. And this building itself is a very sort of very complex, very interesting sort of it could refer to like a basilica type structure. So this basilica type structure, the Palace Julia, seemed, and it sort of, some people believe that the idea of churches, sort of these basilica type building, which was eventually converted into an imperial residence, gave the sort of ideas for people to build churches around the Roman world, even though it became a sort of residential building. And when we think about this, an imperial building, lots of the masonry are original. Obviously, there's been changes to it over the years, and again, this is a big chunk of Roman column that is associated with Trier, and this is that sort of great sort of big palace building. And when you think about it, again, Andy knows what I'm going to say now. This building's being built and constructed out of spoiler, right? So what we mean by that is the Romans didn't have anything to waste, right? So if there was a building that they didn't want anymore, they would demolish it. You can clearly see that there's stone there, bits of marble, bits of all types of stone, bits of brick, and all the rest of it. That's gone into the wall alongside the marble here of this wonderful building, bits of restoration there. So this is a bit of a column there, and interesting enough, a giant column in a German quarry at Felsberg in the Odenwald forest. And look at that column there. And for whatever reason, they abandoned carving that, right? And there was a fault with it, so they didn't move it. But that itself may have been destined for Trier at one point, but it never got there. And we do see this when we go to Egypt. They talk about, these great sort of granite blocks and, being carved, and they didn't actually eventually get to the buildings that they needed. So we see this again associated with the Roman period and various quarries and various associations for to be added to structures that never actually were used. And finally, if we sort of think about this is some of the sarcophagi for later dignitaries associated with the likes of this amazing city of Trier. And again, back to this and sort of the limes. So what I'd like to do now is, again, we've seen Trier, just give you a bit of an overview. There's probably loads of questions, but before we actually get onto this, I'm going to mention that we did mention that there's not too far away that there's a Roman city known as Colonia Claudia, and this is associated with Claudius, but the city was named in honor of Claudius's wife, renamed to honor Agrippina, the younger wife of Emperor Claudius. And again, it's not this site, but I just thought I'd mention that. That's one of the Roman cities that we haven't done today. But this itself is rather interesting, and this is the Germans. They've gone nuts. This is them reconstructing the archaeology of whole Roman cities, and you can see part of the amphitheater there. And this site, I need to get the name right. This is a site known as Colonia Olpia Trajan, home to an extensive archaeological park with reconstructed Roman buildings, including a temple, theatre, statues of Lloyd George, and city walls. Imagine that, just thinking the Germans have done these things, right? And this is a place called Yanten. Again, Xanten. If anyone can come up with the right pronunciation of that, they can. But this is another example of the Germans basically saying, look, we've got our Roman archaeology. And actually, the one thing that we've got something known as the Salzburg Fort, which is the most completely reconstructed Roman fort in Germany. They've completely reconstructed a Roman fort. Completely. This is the Germans, yeah, as part of the Limes Friendly. Again, if we want to come back to this and sort of look at this reconstruction and look at this archaeological park, and there's one thing that I think we lack in Britain. We lack taking our archaeology and our heritage as seriously as people like the Germans, as people like what they actually stand to do with the archaeology in Turkey, and like what they're doing in Cyprus, for example. We don't do enough of this type of stuff in Britain. Yeah, there are bits of reconstructed Roman wall at Vindolanda. Andy's seen it with me. There are bits of reconstructed Roman fort in Manchester, interesting enough. There are bits of Roman fort that have been reconstructed in Tommen and Muir, which is in mid Wales, and a few other places, right? But not things like this, and not whole reconstructions of places like Salzburg Fort. So this is, we're not going to do the Salzburg Fort, because if anyone at the end says, oh, I want us to look at the Salzburg Fort, we will do it. But I just want to mention this site, right, which is actually, this is associated with that Roman legion that was established by our friend Caligula. There it is. And interesting enough, this is one of those Limes Roman legionary bases over by Frankfurt, south of Cologne, in sort of the beating heart of modern day Germany. And this is a place known as Mainz. This is Mogontakum. This is the legionary site of the 22nd Legion. I wanted to show you where it was, and again, this was a city founded by Drusus, and the famous Drusus, and Drusus is thereabouts as a general who's fighting for Augustus. We're talking about 13 years BC. So again, this is the time that this landscape is actually starting to become part of the Roman world proper. Now, when you think about 13 BC, it's only going to be 2 decades, AD 9, Teutoburg Forest, which isn't too far away, that Arminius wipes out 3 of Varus's legions. And again, this is going to be two odd decades later. But the Romans held on to Germany. They kept it as part of their world. And again, this is Drusus's tower. I showed you this before. I basically said this is Mogontakum and Mainz, and this is the site of the 22nd Legion, which would be around for quite some time. That legion again established by Caligula. And again, oh, that's what we're going to do after the break. Look at that. We're going to look at the archaeology of the A66. But carving, in the Roman world is brilliant, right? And that's another thing I haven't done for, I think, in the past 10, 15 minutes. When we look at carvings in the Roman Empire, wherever you go, right, there's one thing that we don't lack in Britain is carvings. We've got some absolutely beautiful carvings at sites along Hadrian's Wall. You know, at Great Chesters, you can think of carvings which are in the middle of fields in Britain, which I've actually covered as part of my series. But you do get lots of carvings in Britain. You get lots of carvings across the Roman Empire and lots of sort of military carvings. And there are one or two, well, when I say there are quite a few nice carvings actually from Cymru, Wales as well. And when again, maybe if fortune should change, right, and I should win the lottery, folks, I'll make this a promise, right? If I ever win the lottery, I'm going to hire a minibus. I'll chuck a load of you in that minibus, and we'll drive over to we'll drive over to York, right? And we'll look at the actual carvings that have actually been found at Eberacum, York, and there's lots of them. As much as there's lots of carvings of Roman legionaries, there's carvings, inscriptions, figures, all sorts of things. And we've got loads of these things at places like Colchester as well. So if I win the lottery tonight, then I've got to keep to that promise. I'm not taking Roger, though. Roger can go up in my car, because Roger has lovely experiences of me driving the car, don't you, Roger? Right. On that note, that was my little bit of overview, a little bit about the Roman archaeology in sort of Germany. There are actually dozens and dozens of sites. Sort of headline this. If you want to sort of look at some Roman sites, again, go to Trier, Augusta Treverorum, Cologne, yes, north of Mainz, Mogontiacum, which you've got the Drusus Tower, you've got Yatzen, Nicolonia, Iolpia, Trajan, that we've got that sort of wonderful sort of reconstructed site. The Salzburg Fort, which we haven't mentioned tonight, we're showing you the Limes frontier, all the sites along there. There's another site called Augsburg, and there's two other places known as Spree and Worms, and two localities that got little bits of Roman remains. But maybe the one that we might need to look at is Salzburg. But this is the reconstruction site of Yatzen. I may have said it right there. And again, the Germans love their archaeology, they love their history, and it's just one of the things that the Romans do good is reconstruction of history. And one of the things that the Romans have been definitely inspired by with lots of their research is sites such as when Germany's sort of been in Greece for certain reasons, they have a habit of excavating lots of sites in Greece. And one of the greatest archaeological excavations that we can talk about is the excavations at Troy by Schliemann by 1880. You've got Schliemann, and also you've got Dolfold, the German archaeologist, excavating there from 1881 at Troy. So the Germans love their history and archaeology. It's a shame that they've got a bad record with being involved in a few wars. Moving on. I said that very diplomatically, so I really did. You can't say I wasn't controversial then. Right, David. And by the way, after the break, we can do the A66 and we're going to do the Roman archaeology there. David, anything you want to say, lovely?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. If you're staying, David, brilliant. If you're not, I'm going to say good night to you, David. Thanks for having you on. Drina, anything you want to say?
Oh, I kept thinking that the archaeology would be a way of showing off to the country they're invading, but they'd do that everywhere, wouldn't they? Not German in particular. I was trying to work out why you thought the stuff in Britain was not as good as the European, the German, etc.
What I'm trying to get at is that maybe me saying that it's not as good is not the right thing. What I'm trying to say is that we've got a different type of Roman archaeology in Britain. That's what I'm trying to say. because what I then did is basically saying you've got beautiful mosaics in Britain where you've got beautiful mosaics in the rest of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
You've got beautiful carvings in Britain where you've got beautiful carvings in the rest of the Roman Empire. What I'm trying to get at is that we don't have the same. We don't have the Pont de Gard. We don't have the Segovia aqueduct, which is in Spain. We don't have the Colosseum in Rome. We don't have lots of these things that we look at. We don't have this the Portus Gate, which we've just seen in Trier. We don't have these things. We don't have anything like it. So, but what I is looking at why our archaeology is very different from what's on the continent. I wanted to compare that. So then when we get into the Roman archaeology, you can probably appreciate my enthusiasm for it. I love Roman archaeology. I really do in Britain. And in fact, I prefer it because there's more questions with our archaeology than the stuff on the continent. And, you know, I love my bits of wall. And, you know, my bits of wall are tiny little bit, cruddy little bits of wall compared to some of this stuff over there, but they're my cruddy little bits of British wall. And Leonard Cottrell said, so maybe I'll put it the wrong way today. Leonard Cottrell once said, the great historian and writing books in the 1940s and 50s, why do we need to go abroad to appreciate the archaeology when we've got so much of our homegrown archaeology in Britain? And he's dead right.
Yeah.
So, Drina, carry on.
No, that's all that I was puzzling over. I mean, would we need? Do we have any aqueducts in Britain?
Yeah,
Maybe we didn't need them.
That's probably it. We got yes, we did need them, but we got a lot of water. So when you look at places like Dorchester, I remember when we had a trip to Dorchester, I remember saying we've got to look at this one bit of hillside where there's like an earthen aqueduct. So instead of having standing aqueducts, they had earthen aqueducts.
Yeah.
So when you've got the aqueducts feeding Hadrian's Wall, they're earthen aqueducts or they're aqueducts underground. And same thing, but they're not towering above the landscape, they're underground. And yeah, you got a point that we've got lots of water in Britain, but we get several months in Britain there's no rain sometimes, right? So you're going to need aqueducts then. So it's not the point that we didn't need them. It's that we had a different way of dealing with our water in Britain than they did on the continent. And there is another reason why we don't have these massive aqueducts in Britain. The population isn't as big. We don't have population centres like Rome, which has got 1 million people that need 7 aqueducts trying to keep the population going, right? And yeah, so there's differences of what's going on and what isn't. On some of the aqueducts in Greece, oh my God, they're absolutely unbelievable. I've got little bits of towering aqueducts going across fields in Greece in my head now, and it says they're beautiful. We don't get anything like that here, but there's reasons why we don't.
Okay, thank you.
There we go. And David went. There you go. See, I see. I've sussed David. He's sussed. Right, Margaret. I haven't sussed Margaret yet.
Am
Go on,
I on?
Margaret.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Hello. Yeah.
Well, the fact that they found a lot of very nice mosaics in Britain means there must have been lots of very nice villas here.
But lots of these villas are built by local people for local people, with local people in mind. So it's, and lots of our villas are done in our way, and you know they've got small windows. They don't have the big open windows like we'd see associated with Roman villas in Tuscany. Yeah, we know that they've got small, narrow little windows with a tiny little bit of window glass and sort of shutters that they've got reconstructions of in regards to the likes of the some of the buildings that they've reconstructed at Roxeter, Viriconium. So we do have some Roman building reconstructions in Britain. We do, but not very many. And so we did things differently, and we built things differently.
It seems that in Europe they had superior construction techniques. They'd got that fabulous Roman concrete. Didn't they use that in Britain?
Yes, they did. They did use we did have Roman concrete in Britain. Yes, we do have it being used in Britain in lots of places, but maybe the answer is a quote from Geoffrey of Monmouth. So when Geoffrey of Monmouth is writing in the 1130s about the likes of Killeen, he basically said, when I visited Killeen, this is in the 1130s, AD 1130s, 1136, I think. So he's describing there, he's looking up and there's these vaulted sort of these vaulted spans of a bathhouse in Killeen, right? And then within a few years it was all demolished, and it was repurposed. It was all repurposed for building stuff in Killeen.
Well, I think that's true of all of Britain. When the Romans left, we didn't really have a centralized authority, did we? So I think, the villas and whatever were there was just pillaged, because when the Anglo-Saxons came in, they preferred building in wood and thatch.
But
Ah.
you've just hit the nail on the head. Lots of the Roman villas were actually timber. Lots when you look at the archaeology, what you do find, you see shallow ground plans of 5 or 6 courses of wall, and then you've got timber framing, and then the rest of it is timber and almost pseudo crux frame structures that you might find in the medieval period. In the Roman period, lots of it is timber. And then you've got wattle and daub framework. Lots of our Roman villa stuff in Britain is as Roger was explaining earlier on, bungalow like. It's sort of single story. We don't get lots of multiple story buildings in Britain, and in that case, lots of them are made of timber. And there's one weird thing, Margaret. Right, this is quite clear, right? That on a Wednesday afternoon at 12:15, maybe in the year 430, right? Most of the Roman villas in Britain were abandoned, and you're just thinking, what's happened, right? Even though they're still laying mosaics at places like Chedworth in 420, suddenly something happens, and we're now starting to explain it by the Anglo-Saxons didn't come in waves of people. There were a few of them here and there, and other people coming over, right? They were entering a landscape that was relatively abandoned. It was almost as if some kind of terrible plague went through the landscape and wiped out hundreds of thousands of people. And then people continued operating as a Roman civilization in the north, but suddenly they couldn't economically keep these villas going with these beautiful mosaics and hypercore systems going. It used tons and tons of timber every single year to keep a single hypercore system going. And without the people and the manpower to do it, just the whole structure collapses. And as lots of these structures are really fragile, then you're left with, I think the hardest thing for me to cope with is when I'm looking at Roman forts, and I'm looking at not so much towns, but one example is Hornchurch. I did a small presentation on Hornchurch, right? And in Hornchurch, you go around the town of Hornchurch, and you've got a bit of wall going in somebody's garden, a bit of wall going for the churchyard, right? And then when they say what was in the middle of Hornchurch, they can't figure it out because most of the buildings were timber, right? So instead of building, as they did on the continent, places like the wonderful temples in Nîmes, and you might get the contents of the heart of Rome, we don't really get that into a massive degree in Britain as we see in the continent. And the other thing as well is this is really interesting, that if in the 300s towns and cities in Britain thought, oh, we're not going to bother building walls, the archaeology wouldn't really show much above the surface. We wouldn't have the great walls at Caerwent. We wouldn't have the great city walls around Eberacum. We wouldn't have the great city walls around Londinium if they hadn't have decided to start building them. So, and then what we would be left with is a very odd Roman era Britain indeed. And that would even make it even stranger to explain. So, yeah.
I guess Europe had fewer population collapses as well, didn't they? I mean, we were constantly.
Yeah, the thing is with Britain, when you look at a good example, a good case study of population collapses is actually Orkney. And when I've given talks on this, and it's just like when you look at Orkney, sometime in about the 600s, the DNA is basically a little bit of Pictish, and then it's mainly Viking. And then archaeologists have said, oh, that's because the Vikings went in there butchering everybody. It actually turns out that it was likely that most of Orkney had been abandoned population-wise by around the 600s because there's something wrong. Something went wrong with Orkney, some kind of terrible disease that went through Orkney like a dose of salts. And the other thing as well with Britain is that we don't, at certain times of the year, we have terrible weather conditions, right? Which mean that people are cooped up in houses, coughing their guts out and sort of spreading diseases. Whereas on the continent, you can get away from it. In Britain, you can't. We're on an island.
Interesting.
Yes, Roger.
No, nothing with me. I'm packing in now, Carl, as well.
Don't you go, Rog! Don't you go!
Get my sleep in.
Oh, Roger, I wish I could be cuddled up to you tonight.
Well, it was interesting this about Trier, because that's where the latest Samian ware was made after it left France Gaul. And they had wasn't as perhaps the same quality, but pretty good. And it was famous for that.
Yes, yeah.
How long?
Right.
I don't know how long they did it.
Yeah, he
That
is
was
right.
one thing I remember from the studies we had.
Yeah, what happened when the Samian factories were burnt down in sort of central east France, roughly they were burnt down in sort of the early 100s and the later 100s, and then people thought this pottery was so great, the factories have all burnt down. They nicked the molds and they took it to places like Trier and Colchester, and they started making these things because Samian ware is made in molds. Right, so as long as you got the mold, but unfortunately, unless you get
and the stamps,
unless you can get the potters to actually tell you the exact formula, it's not going to come out the same. I remember. Can I tell you a little story? I've not told anyone at all. Right, when I was working as a volunteer at Cosmester Medieval Village, right, one of the archaeologists there who ended up working for Lancaster University. Called Richard Newman, Dr. Richard Newman. It was only when it was like 1986 when I was about 11. He said, "Oh, Carl, use a bit of Roman Samian with a stamp on it. Show that guy over there, right? He'll write down what it is," and that was it, right? And I thought, "Oh my God, he's given me this Roman Samian ware pottery with a wonderful stamp on the bottom, right?" So I took it home with me, right? I wasn't supposed to keep it at all. So I ended up having to go back to Cosmester Medieval Village that weekend to take this bit of pottery back. I was really embarrassed, but Roman Samian ware is really, really nice pottery, and Roger, I think, is referring to the fact that Dr. Webster, who was doing a study on the Roman Samian ware that's been found at Cardiff Castle, there was so much of it, it took decades and decades and decades to process it all. There were tens of thousands of this Roman Samian ware and boxes and boxes and boxes. And Roger, did you obviously looked at some of that, didn't you?
Well, yes, we had a lot of stuff, mainly from Gaul in the first century and the next, before they left that and went to Trier. But a lot of the stuff was high quality in the designs. As you say, they used to stamp it, mold them, and use these poinceau little stamps to get small patterns on the main pattern. Because nothing was turned, it was all made by hand. And very high quality. Trier, I always thought, wasn't quite up to the standard of the early stuff in Gaul. Matter of fact, because you saw a lot of master potters were there. They also had apprentices doing their stuff, which was very good, but sometimes it wasn't quite as finished. And that carried on in Trier. But there we are, big business for it. I've often wondered what Trier was, how big it was, and it's quite important. And they moved around, as you said, showing off their empire.
Exactly, showing off their empire was quite big. And
That's really what they achieved.
Roger's point with the Samian ware, for example, is that they started to make Roman Samian ware in Colchester, right? And they got away with it by making the bowls a bit thicker and sort of they weren't as good, right? And actually, Roman Samian ware made in Colchester is extremely rare.
Like black furniture and stuff, which ended up as greyware, cheap stuff in the end.
And we got a little bit of that after the break as well. So you're leaving us now, are you, Rog?
Yes. Retired.
All right then. Well.
Bye.
Hello, Roger.
See you all. Take care.
Hello, Rog.
Be well. And yes, I could have gone to a lecture tonight locally, but I thought, no, we don't want that. I'm here, and I enjoyed it. Very impressive. And one thing with that last fort with the amphitheatre within the walls is strange, but the walls there look quite thin compared to, say, the remnants of Cardiff Castle, where the walls there, the remnants, are quite thick.
Oh, they are thick. Yeah.
But those things seem, I know it's reproduction, so you couldn't have all that. Otherwise, you'd have a mountain of stone. But there was that difference. And surprisingly, the amphitheatre was within the walls, but still. I don't know what the burial site. So there we are. See you all.
No, Rog.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah.
No, Rog.
Take care. See you, Will.
Rog.
Yep.
Take care. Right. Anything you want to say, Will, before we have a break?
No, but in those Richborough videos, there are a list of about 40 or 50 potters marks, plus some for Reculver and some for lime. So it's quite a lot of information from the 1850s. It was a well done book, and it covers a lot of stuff about those three areas. 22nd Primogenia have an Amorbach. There was a plaque found which referred for the Reputine area where they were supposedly based around Richborough, which I took to be Richborough, Lyme, and Reculver, where they could have circulated around the three forts. Although the Repute area is normally referred to Londinium, Canterbury, and Richborough. So a little bit of that's in the 1850 text.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. Thanks for that, Will. Right. Judith and then Andy, and we'll have a break.
Me?
Oh, well, hang on.
Sorry.
You don't look anything like Andy.
Oh, well, did you mean me or did you mean Andy? Andy can go first if you like.
No, you can go. Ladies first. Andy don't look anything like a lady.
Right. The Moselle area is a big wine growing area, and it's very sunny and very warm. So in the Roman warm period, it might have been really, really, really hot.
Nice.
So it attracted a lot of, a big population because people like the sunshine, don't they? People like being warm. They don't like being cold and wet in Wales, do they? They like being nice and warm on the bed.
Well, me and Roger are thinking about moving up to Yorkshire with you, love.
Oh, it's sunny, but it's cold.
Okay, fair enough. We won't
Perfect.
bother.
So just a thought, maybe there's a big population there because of the weather. I don't know.
True. Yeah, obviously we don't think about this, so obviously things have changed within the environment and the landscape. Yeah. True. Anyway, if there's nothing else, Judith, I will go to Andy and we'll have a break for 15 minutes.
Okay.
Gonna have a break now. It's my turn.
After your turn, you can have it.
After your turn.
All right. I was kind of wondering whether there was because of these that gate in Trier, which is like 4 stories and rebuilt as well, because you can see the older one behind it, which was still fairly substantial. And you're right, I'm not aware of anything more than 2 stories in Britain, although there might have been a 3-story villa in Gloucestershire, but they're all fairly low. But then they're also, didn't you say that was 18 BC, the gatehouse in Trier?
It's going to be developed from 18 BC. It's not.
Okay.
You were thinking of the Tower of Drusus at Mainz. Yeah, that was a different thing altogether. So obviously the tower. I think what we'll do, we'll look at more about the tower next week. But particularly, I'm not going to spend too long on it, but I'll put some images on it. But this is something that's going to be developed and added to. So it's going to have been started at that stage, but the masonry is not going to be from that period. So
what I was wondering about was whether they, because this is before. I mean, obviously we are trading and dealing with the Romans, all through that period, but not here to stay as such, settled or assimilated, however you want to put it, until quite a bit after that. And therefore I wondered whether, because I don't know about Roman architecture that much, whether they actually built buildings that big after that. And it was a style of building that was pre-43, and that's why there are more in Germany,
right, yeah. So that actually that is something to mull upon from next week. Do you know what? Right, that is a really, really good question. I'm gonna styles. Yes. So if we could probably answer that by saying if we look at something like the Colosseum, that's being built roughly about the AD 70s, which is a mega scale.
Yeah.
But if we think about Trajan, who's from sort of 115, we're talking about his massive palace, and then we're talking about Caracalla, who's dead by 217. We're talking about the massive baths outside Rome. We can assume that the period of building big stuff is after AD 43, but it's worth looking at the correlation. Yes, I will do that. I will do that for next week.
Yep.
Right, we're gonna have a break for 15 minutes, so it's 9:54, and we'll be back before 9:10. So Margaret, go and stop talking and put the kettle on.
You hello.
Oh, hey, try Rog.
Bye.
Hi, Roger.
Roger.
Take
Right.
care.
It's got a lot of windows, isn't it, that building?
I thought you said Roger's got a lot of wind. Anyway, let's.
Oh, that gatehouse, it's got loads and loads of windows.
Oh, well, it'd be buggered in the window tax, wouldn't it?
They wouldn't do that here. It's too wet and windy.
Yeah.
That's true. Maybe it's a competition to see how many windows you got. Right, I'm gonna have a break now. I'll be back.
Right.
Okay. Oh, ow. Oh.
All alone there, Andy.
Yes, looks like it. A lot of empty rooms, aren't there? They
A
all
lot
run
of
away.
empty rooms. That's it. So you're staying quite busy, are you?
I am. Yeah, it's just jobs keep coming and going, and everyone seems to want them all at the last minute and things. It's a little chaotic, and I'm not really quite sure why. And I've never really I don't get on with that. I like to plan quite a bit in advance, you know.
Right.
But and it always amazes me that people seem to think that you can come do some work at the drop of a hat, like you're just sitting there doing nothing, waiting for their phone call or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But it seems to be everywhere. It's not just in my business. I don't know. I was watching. I don't really remember that a few months, well, quite a while ago now. A container ship got stuck in the Suez Canal.
Yes.
I was watching a documentary on that the other day, and it said the problem is today is obviously massive ships going down. That's very easy to get slightly out of control, and there was quite a strong crosswind, and they, a combination of events like all disasters, going a bit too fast, and they got out of control, hit one bank, and then swung round and hit the other bank and wedged on both sides, blocked it. And you
Right.
go, okay, right. It took them 5 or 6 days to get out of it, but because everybody's supply and demand chain is only a couple of days, it caused chaos.
Yes.
To the whole world, right? Especially Western Europe, because obviously that's a shortcut through to Western Europe. I don't suppose it probably made much difference to Canada and the States and things, but although it probably did to some of it. But and it just thought, this is just lack of planning, because they were talking about what could they learn from it and what could they do about it, and they, you not go that fast and not let them in when it's too windy and all the rest of it. But then it's the whole planning and ordering. But then of course people don't order and don't buy, so they can't do that anyway. So it's just like, oh, this is just chaos. This just means that any slight problem, like possibly a war with Iran, stops the supply of fuel, and suddenly the world stops in 2 days, So I don't know whether fuel prices have gone up there, but they've gone rocketed up here.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I follow Sky News, so I get an update on the British stuff.
Yeah.
American oil has gone up. Canada's got its own crude.
Yeah.
And Canada exports crude rather than imports crude.
Oh, good. Yeah.
In a sense, but Canadian crude is a different quality, so
Yes.
it's
Like
lower
ours.
priced.
Yeah.
Maybe more sulfur content, I think, is the key out of Alberta.
Yeah.
But prices have gone up, but I think we are paying, and I don't drive, I choose not to use a car. But we're paying about $1.50, so that's £1 a litre.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're at about 165 for diesel now. So it'd be
So that's
probably
about
about 150 or something like that for petrol.
So $3 and change compared to me. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's gone up 20, 30p in 2 weeks,
Right.
And
And then
they aren't paying that at the pump for it, because that's probably the same tank as they had last week,
well, it's there somewhere, right? It's in transit, and when the price goes up, and of course the government tends to take the opportunity to bump a couple of pennies of tax on top of a price rise.
Yeah.
But I saw the explanation on Sky that the average retailer maybe makes 16p net
Yeah.
on the contribution to his profit.
Yeah.
16p out of every gallon. The rest is taxes and all the cost.
Yeah.
But I was considering they could build a canal in the United Arab Emirates as of about 40 kilometers,
Yeah. Cutting off that
about
corner.
20 kilometers back, which could put the total bypass the Hormuz itself, and just go, build a canal, make it wide enough to handle the amount of shipping.
I thought,
If they spent the money on that, and if it was defended properly, then you got no problems with, if Iran is still a problem in the future.
Yeah.
But it's up to those people who are spending the money and losing money who want to maybe do that.
Yeah.
Is it true that they're letting the Chinese tankers through?
I don't know, but it's quite probable that they won't
The thing is,
interrupt.
this is an illegal war.
Yes, it is totally illegal, and it's
Well, it is
nice
an
that
illegal
people
war.
are starting to say that now.
And
Finally.
it's technically not a war because war has not been declared.
Yeah.
The thing is, when I was a politician back in 2003, right, I was the only politician that was saying that we should not be going into Iraq, right?
Yeah.
And I was having death threats. I was getting people saying terrible things about me in the newspaper. And then a year later, I couldn't find a single person who agreed with it.
Yeah.
So it's just like suddenly everybody realised. But at the time, I was I had people. There was I wrote a letter to the newspaper. They totally switched it around, saying I completely, fully supported Saddam Hussein's regime, and I loved him, and I was a massive supporter of him. But 1 year later, you couldn't find a single person who actually agreed with it. And this is exactly what's going to happen with Iran.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to see that Merz stood up and said that, you know, it is not a job for NATO, you know.
Yeah.
Because somebody
by the
had
way,
to say it.
Hang on a minute. Who have we just left?
Will.
Oh,
Oh my God! It must have been something you said, Margaret.
I didn't say anything.
well, there you go. That'll be why then.
That'll be why you should have said something.
I'm sure he'll be back. But yes.
I sent him a letter the other day. It was completely a different name.
I've got still got some things of yours in the garage, Andy.
Have you?
The blow up rubber doll.
Oh dear.
A couple of boxes. Is it Auntie Barbara's wardrobe fittings?
Oh right, yeah.
Auntie Barbara's blow up rubber doll.
Yeah.
And
They're really important. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, and you've nicked one of my.
I have your host
camping chairs. One of my camping chairs.
Oh, Andy! How dare you? That's terrible.
I got your hose pipe for your
for the carpet
as well,
cleaner.
Yeah.
But I did have two, those fold-out green chairs.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I've only got one left, so unless somebody's been in and
what are you doing?
No, we have two of those as well, so it's possible they got picked up. I'll have a look.
Should we do an online auction now? Judith is looking for a chair.
Yeah, I'll swap you wardrobe fittings for a camping chair.
Okay, I'll have a look round and see. Yeah.
Okay. I haven't needed them yet, but I might.
No, but the sun's come out, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Right, we got to get to the A66. Yeah. By the way, Andy. By the way, I've just sent I've just sent. Or maybe it was me saying that it's an illegal war, and that's what upset Will.
You said illegal, didn't you?
I said illegal war. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think he's. I think he agrees with that. He's Canadian. Yeah, they all agree with that.
Yeah.
Canadian.
Sensible.
All right, hey, do you know what? Right, do you know what? Before we crack on, right? I remember the golden rule, right, with anyone from America and Canada, right? Mm-hmm. If you say to every single person you come across who you faintly might think a Canadian, you've got to say the Canadian, right?
Yes.
Because if you ever call a Canadian American, they will not talk to you ever again.
No,
mind you,
the worst insult. Yeah.
Oh, Andy, it's the world. It's the end of the world, right? And it's the end. And basically, if you say to a Canadian, "Oh, are you from Canada? Are you from Ottawa?" And they go, "Oh my God, I'm from Ottawa. How did you know that? Oh, fiddly dee! I caught you out. You're from Georgia."
Right. Yeah, I remember being when I was kind of younger. I went kind of hitched through Greece and things, and there were a lot of Canadians there, and they all had the Canadian flag on their bag. And I said, "Why do you always have your bag on?" He said, and they just said, "We don't want to be confused with the Americans." And he said, it really is quite insulting. We get really upset by it. It's kind of I had a guy that was Iranian that worked for me who had to escape from Iran.
Yeah.
And he was saying that it's the same if you call Iranians Arabs, because they're not Arabs, so, and they get really upset by that. So if you want to annoy them, just call them Arabs.
I thought they were Arabs.
No.
I thought they were Arabs.
They have their own language, their own culture, completely different from Arabs.
Yeah, they have gardens.
What are they then?
Persian.
Yeah, big garden culture.
Persian.
Yeah.
And they like dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they what?
They like dogs. Arabs don't like dogs.
They like dogs.
Yeah.
I didn't know Arabs didn't like dogs. Isn't that just a bit of a stereotype? A bit.
Arabs don't like dogs.
I didn't know that.
I don't think the Chinese like dogs much.
They don't like cats.
They like to eat them.
They eat them. Yeah, didn't an English couple go on holiday and take their dog with them? And they asked for the dog to be fed. Could they take it to the kitchen to be fed? And they cooked it. Served it up on a platter.
Hmm.
Oh no, you've got to be joking. That is just what?
No.
It
What?
could be a myth. It could be one
It
of
could
those
be.
Yeah, no.
It could be.
stories.
No. That's got to be a myth, right? But you could get that confused, couldn't you? It's like,
Yes.
could you take the dog to the kitchen to feed it, and they
Yeah.
thought, feed you the dog? It's quite an easy mistake to make. Judith makes this mistake all the time in her job.
In Yorkshire, yeah, it's a common mistake in Yorkshire. Yeah.
Bad gum. Oh right. Oh my god. Right, we gotta crack on with
All right,
the A66. So I
Yeah,
got some,
good one. That.
right. So we got some good images. I do believe they're all set up, and I'm still trying to work out why we've got a blow up rubber doll in your garage, Margaret. But that's between
It's
you and me.
Andy's.
Yeah, that'll be
Oh,
one.
Andy!
Yeah.
I didn't know you cared.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. The first image that we see from trenches to TV, the story beyond the A66 Roman cemetery.
Yes.
Now, there's a piece of samianware with a stamp in it. So sometimes you get the stamp on the underside. Lots of times you actually get the stamp in the bowl, right? And there it is. There it is. It's for all to see, that really nice glossy appeal, that really nice samianware. And now, guys, I'm in completely my element. So this itself, I've been coming across stories from the A66 and Oxford archaeology, Oxford Cotswold archaeology. I've actually seen it as Oxford archaeology, but it's Oxford Cotswold archaeology. It's two organisations there. They were two separate organisations at one stage, so they're now one, Oxford Cotswold archaeology. And one thing that I would say is lots of archaeological organisations are now amalgamating, because in Wales we had 4 archaeological trusts, and now they're all known as HENEB. They've all amalgamated into one. So this is happening a lot. But anyway, let's move on. So these images are thanks to Oxford Cotswold Archaeology. Ochre, not to be mistaken for Orca, which is the one in Orkney. Ochre. The Ochre team has been involved in undertaking one of the more substantial scientific excavations of a Roman cemetery found in Britain in recent years, associated with the work along the A66. Now, obviously, we don't have many images tonight, but I just wanted to just do a little bit of an overview, a set overview, without looking at press releases and stuff. So so this is basically life, death, images, looking at some cremational burials, intricate grave goods, and evidence of fascinating funerary practices. Now, the work at the A66 is an ongoing project along the length of changes to the A66, widening and so on. So from excavation, cremations with meticulous care. So this is where the science bit comes in. Archaeology is, at the end of the day, a science, right? And it's using those scientific techniques. One of the things that I'll mention it. One of the things that I've got with my work down here is that I've come across 2 distinct layers of charcoal, which I've now got to try and sort of map and try to understand that. So obviously it's down to fines bags and sort of trying to work that out. But this type of stuff on the A66 is massively funded. There's a lot of money into this, and this is actually being funded by the developer in the main. And they've actually, this has been part of the BBC Digging for Britain series. So the site team share daily images on TikTok. There's one archaeologist on TikTok who's sharing her videos on the excavation, the A66, not particularly this site, the A66, and she's like sharing videos on a regular basis on TikTok. So I've been grabbing them off TikTok and putting them on my YouTube. So so the archaeologist on site is Camilla Guzanek. And yes, I do believe the videos that I'm talking about are made by her. So what they're talking about is along the A66, in her own words, again, looking at this wonderful piece of Roman samianware, and we'll go on to another image in a moment. So she says, we excavated the cemetery associated with the Roman fort and settlement at Brucham, near the northern border of the Roman Empire in Cumbria. So this is why Andy's sort of particular interest is there. We knew it had the potential to be an exceptional once in a career site after parts of it were dug during the previous works on the A66 in the 1960s. So there we go. There's Oka, archaeologists working on Roman cemetery site, and look at that there. Right, okay, what are those there? So they're obviously sample boxes. So each of those boxes relate to a cremation, a context. So each of those boxes is numbered, and all those are then taken back to the laboratory, and they're sifted. They're floated. What we mean by floating, it's a process where you put artifacts in water and you float the contents into different grades of mesh. So you pick up sort of everything from bits of pottery to bits of metal to bits of beetle sort of beetle wings and or shell and all sorts of wonderful bits and pieces. So or you might actually excavate these actual boxes in the laboratory. You've got the box, you're excavating the box in the laboratory under scientific conditions. And the one thing that I'm going to say, right, anyone who's none of you might never be involved in an archaeological excavation with me, but one of the things that I stick with is people wearing high-vis, decent boots and a hard hat, because it looks professional, and that looks professional. You can't fault it. I don't think I've ever said this, folks, but archaeologists are professionals. I don't believe we should go out in combat gear, wearing t-shirts with holes in our boots. When you're being paid to do a job, you should look professional. That's what I feel. Anyway, so that's my bit said. So she's saying again, anticipation was very high as we stripped the ground to expose the delicate archaeology. And when you look at it, the archaeology is quite close to the surface, actually. And usually I'm not exactly sure of the precise technique that they're using. Sometimes what we might do is take the topsoil off and then we reveal the context underneath. They may have actually been a little bit more delicate than that. And they're basically delicate archaeology, and one cremation burial after another came to light. We were not disappointed. We discovered a large number of graves, both cremation and inhumation burials. Just a reminder, inhumation is bodies that's not burnt and usually laid out, flexed or crouched, which is sort of in the sort of fetus position. Although very little bone was preserved, some inhumation graves were quite spectacular, as they were lined with beautiful local red sandstone, forming a box-like structure known as a kist. Now, I took a video from Camille the other day, and Camelia, and it was actually showing this. So what they dug, she showed digging a little hole in the ground with 4 bits of local stone, 4 sides, and putting a stone on the top. That's basically a kist. Yeah. But it is the large number of cremation burials that made the site very special. So let's go on to hand drawing. It's good that they're still doing hand drawing stuff, because the problem is, can I little bit of a confession. I was recording a piece of archaeology last year, and the weather wasn't great, and I used my camera, and I was taking photograph from above, and there was a tape measure laid on the stone, and because of the angle, right, the proportions were wrong, and I thought, oh my god, what am I doing here? Right, so this is why we've got a grid on the archaeology still, and we're drawing this by hand, hand drawn plan. It's good to see that it's still being done. You can see things when you're drawing that you can't see with a photograph. I'm sure you'll all agree. When you've got the camera there, I've thought, right, I'm gonna take what's in front of me, and you never do, right? And so as a filmmaker, I'm very aware of that as well, and it's the different angles and stuff. But when as an archaeologist, when you're actually drawing this stuff, it really comes in. So I do believe what we're talking about is, you've got stone there. It's I think there's 2 kists there alongside each other. That's the stone sticking up there. So the cremations, and obviously you get cremation pots and stuff in between all of this. I think that's two kists rather than a burial, but I haven't got the key there. That's my interpretation of what I'm seeing. So cremations can vary greatly in type and aspect, which makes them so interesting to excavate. This site had it all: a pyre on which the deceased had been cremated, graves with remains placed in beautifully decorated urns or boxes, or simply in plain ground pits to put the ashes and charcoal left from the pyre. That's one thing that I would sort of translate. What we've got is, when you're creating a pyre, before you create the pyre, you cut a hole in the ground, you cut a square box in the ground, right? You may actually pre-line that, actually. So you cut the square in the ground, and then you build the burial pyre. So if you're going to burn a body, you need 2 meter tall stack of timber, actually 2 meter tall stack of timber. Then you put the body on it, and usually what happens is that as the pyre is completely immersed, everything's dragged into the center, and usually the bones and stuff are dragged directly into the hole in the ground, and that's what we're talking about with the pyre. So, oh, look at that there, cheeky looking face of that archaeologist. So some cremations were simple, as we said. Some had vessels made of glass, pottery and bronze, jewelry, and even elements of military equipment and weapons. So again, why are we doing this? Because we're not just doing this because it's the A66. We're doing this because lots of the stuff is from the Roman era. That's why it makes it really relevant to us. So we found beautiful decorated pottery, 1 or 2 things to look at in a short while, and even complete glass cups. We got one of them, and the likes of which you see only in museums. So they're finding this in the archaeology. One type of find that the whole team loved was little flat fragments of decorated animal bone used to embellish things like wooden boxes, casks. Not a usual discovery at all. And lots of bones don't usually survive on archaeological sites, you know. They rot away like everything else. You're left with pottery and just teeth. But and this guy here, it's Matt Gibbon, and he's got like you know, he's got that little figure there. Almost looks like a little gaming figure that I used to play with when I was younger. So Matt Gibson, one of the project officers and osteoarchaeologist, comments the excavation process. Before any soil is removed from a cremation burial, we record what we can see on the surface using photographs and drawing. 2, this is so that we have a record of any disturbance to the burial before excavation. It's called preservation by record, right? That's what that is, preservation by record. So before you remove the archaeology, that's preservation by record. You're making you're preserving what's there by recording it. So once this is done, next, we take the soil out of half of the feature in layers using trowels and small tools, so as dental picks and lollipop sticks. Or in my case, if a toothbrush is needed, I'd use Michelle's toothbrush and then put it back in evening if I need to do a little detail like that. So we leave in place any pots or grave goods such as jewelry, statues and brooches. Got a few of them to show you. Little sort of figure there in front of us. All the soil removed is placed in sealed buckets. We've explained that, to be wet sieved later. This is to recover any loose burnt bone or small finds such as glass beads which may have been missed. The soil within burial urns and accompanying vessels is not removed at this stage. And that figure itself, where he's showing that figure there, it's holding a small winged figure of Cupid. It looks like something like a berserker out of Warhammer or something. The symbol of love with arrow, a rare find in Britain. Do you know what? It'd be so good to actually see another close-up image of that. But that's what we've got, the best of what we got at this minute. So this is actually another find held by our friend Joe Robb. And so what we've got next is that we've got this object. Look at that. Now that is a circular brooch, a metal brooch, a certain style of brooch. And in fact, there's a collection of these which have actually been excavated in Richborough, which is what we looked at last week. Loads of brooches being found at Richborough, an old collection of them. Anyway, circular brooch, Roman period, metal brooch found within cremational burial. And again, it's getting a context where these are found, what relationship to the layers, what relationship with the body, and so on, and the cremation. And this neck figure is really interesting. It's got what's known as a Phrygian cap. Now, a Phrygian cap, I don't know. I'll draw it actually. What a Phrygian cap is. A Phrygian cap is basically the Phrygian people of sort of Turkey. So if you could think of the hat like that, and it's a hat that comes over like that. And that's a Phrygian. Oh, that's actually quite good. So the Phrygian cap, that pointed bit be worn in the front, it's got a Phrygian cap. And interesting enough, could these people have actually come all the way from sort of Turkey and that type of landscape, and a bit further towards the east, towards the Persian world, Andy, which are not Arabs? Pipe clay figurine depicts a male youth wearing a tunic, cloak, and a Phrygian cap, and holding a round item, perhaps a ball or piece of fruit. Yeah, there we go. Maybe I'm going to go with a piece of fruit, maybe like an orange or something, sort of something like that. Something citrus, maybe. And again, these are artifacts coming out of the ground. So this has been published recently. And in end of January, actually, I think it's 26. So what they've got now. So obviously you've got this figure. So a pipe clay figure depicts a male youth wearing a tunic, cloak, a Phrygian cap. And the next, so what they're saying now, the next burial, which we're gonna look at, which is gonna be this one here. There they go. So the next burial is photographed and drawn again. Following this, the soil from the other half of the feature is excavated, again leaving any finds in place and saving the soil for wet sieving. So basically, everything above is sectioned, drawn, half of it, and then it's all placed into the bucket, and then you've got the archaeology, the artifact underneath to be mapped and planned. So another round of drawings and photographs is then undertaken. The location of the pots and finds recorded using GPS. A detailed written record of the burial is made, describing the shape, another plan of course, of the feature, the composition of the soil and all of the finds. Once this is done, any grave goods, like this object in front of us, are carefully lifted and placed in protective boxes. Again, so the bits of the artifacts that you're moving from above this and soil samples around go in the white boxes. But if it's an object that you want to keep intact without fiddling about, sort of, moving it and damaging it, what you're going to do is this. That's what you're going to do. And then you've taken it out the ground and you've put the artifacts that were from this back in there, right? Or you've just moved the whole thing out the ground, depending on the way you're going to do it. So this is Ash Harrington, supervisor behind, and Lewis Jones posing with wrapped and lifted cremation vessel. So obviously a small thing. So taking it all out the ground, and then it's going to be put on a shelf, so in another box, and then that can be excavated in the lab. And this is the point. So the next one, this is Emily Topless. No, not topless, topless, posing with wrapped and lifted cremation vessel. And this is, again, this whole object hasn't fallen apart whilst it's being lifted out the ground, right? They've wrapped this object, and then it can be excavated in the laboratory. Can I just make a comment? The Egyptians have got a new technique that they're using. So in Egypt, when they're excavating some sites, so obviously tombs and stuff underground, which is not much soil, So instead of the Egyptians moving all the artifacts out and gluing them back together in the museum, they're actually reconstructing the objects in the tombs, then mapping them and then taking them out, right? So nothing's mixed up, right? So the Egyptians are gluing the artifacts together in the tomb, and then they're moving them, which is in a way what they're doing on these types of sites, in a way. So this next object is you're gonna like, you're gonna really like it. So this object itself is going to be taken to a laboratory in a minute. We'll explain about that. So it's then put in front of an osteoarchaeologist, and one of the osteoarchaeologists, Lauren McIntyre, explains, once all the vessels have been block lifted like this, sometimes they're not wrapped like this, they're blocked in squares like that one there, but that's smaller. But this has been, they've done pretty well with this, and we'll show this in a moment. Once all the vessels have been lifted, this means that we can excavate each one in small layers under controlled conditions, whilst they're having a cup of coffee in the warm, to discover, or in the cold, it might need different conditions, to discover and record what is inside in lots of detail. Doing this in the laboratory also means we don't have to worry about things like bad weather and wind, and people asking, what are you doing? What have you just found? Well, they're not going to be there because it's a protected site. But anyway, the contents of each pot are excavated in 2 centimeter layers. Now, here we go. There it is. We record the position of all the things that we find inside using photography by making a written record of each layer. Each layer is called a spit. Everything from each spit, including the soil, is sampled. Right, so obviously you can't keep every single grain of the soil, but you need to get an idea of a sense. You know, there might be evidence of lactic acids or any of these different things, but this is obviously a cremational jar. And look at that. So unfortunately it goes a bit quick now because we go there, but this again is just showing you, obviously you've got bits of cremational bone. Now, if this had been done on site, you might be coming to the end of the day, and you might rush and you might miss detail, and things might get lost in the soil as you're excavating it outside. If this is done in a laboratory, you don't make those types of mistakes. It's done properly. So I do believe, Andy, that Will's just joined us. Good. So again, showing the inside of this vessel itself. Image show before, mid, and after excavation of a cremational vessel from the A66 Roman cemetery. And can somebody confirm that Will's just joined us? Right, I got to come back out a minute.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, he did. He came up, and I acknowledged admit, but doesn't seem to have come up on it for some reason.
Right. Yeah, there must have been something on there. He's fine. He's coming back in.
Okay.
All right. So let's get back to where we were. Don't worry, Andy. You did the right thing. It's all good. It's not the end of the world. Right. So let's go back to where we were. Image. Now, again. So the whole point is, if we had, so this would be 2 centimeters. So they've got down to the bone. So you move a bone after recording it, and then put it in another box and sample that. And you keep doing this down the layers until you get to the empty jar. Now, the one thing I was going to say is that in the past, we never used to do this, right? We used to just remove the contents out of the jar in the field and put them in a bag, and all the things that we didn't think were anything, we'd discard them. We don't do that really anymore. And you can imagine if it was raining, this would be contaminated again. So it's best to get out of the ground as soon as you can and to deposit somewhere. So you've got the 3 stages, and the Roman cemetery. Now, Roger mentioned this earlier on, black burnished ware, I think he did, or something like that. Anyway, so black burnished ware, BB2, black burnish ware pottery made in Dorset between the 200s and the 300s, normally used as cooking pots, but in this case used as an urn. So obviously it would have been a cooking pot, but they thought, right, let's use it as a burial urn. These types of pots are found across the Roman military zone in northern Britain, across Britain completely. This may be evidence of a military contract between Dorset potters and the Roman military, again associated with the military across Britain. So again, get that image with the bone. So some of the pots contain cremated bone fragments. We can examine these for evidence of age, sex, and disease. And again, by examining the wall of the pot, we could probably work out what it was used for beforehand. So there might be evidence of lactic acids or any of those things. It may have had milk or whatever in it. So we can examine the side wall of this pot. Is something that Professor Sherratt used to do at Oxford University quite some years ago, and it was a technique that we're now using to work out what was in these things. So sometimes we also find burnt metal or glass fragments mixed with the bones. These are usually pieces of objects that would have been cremated on the pyre with the deceased. So in other words, that's a really good point, because in Barry, for example, there's a site that I got to take a note of this because I've just realised something. I've got to take a note. Glass burnt. Right. In Barry, there was a site in the 1980s, something known as Atlantic Trading Estate, and this site, known as the Atlantic Trading Estate, was a site that there was lots of burials, and with lots of burials, they found, with the cremated burials, they found bits of melted glass, right? And obviously those bits of melted glass would have been placed onto the burial pyre with the person just about to be burnt. The heat is so intense on the burial pyre that the glass would just melt. So back to this. So in these, they would find a mixture of glass fragments and metal mixed with the bones. These are usually pieces of objects that would have been cremated on the pyre with the deceased. Once complete, now like the deceased, in bits. There wasn't a pun there either. When the pot excavation is finished, each sample is sent to our environmental team to be wet sieved, as we've said. After wet sieving, the bone fragments are slowly dried. Any stones are removed and the bone fragments are brought back to the osteologist for analysis. Other pots, there we go. We've done that. We've done that one there. Other pots, there it is. Look at that beautiful image. Other pots don't contain any bones, just soil. If there are no bone fragments, we know that these pots were placed in the grave as an offering. They might have contained food or something else that hasn't survived in the ground. There are still traces in lots of these, by the way. These were gifts given to the deceased when they were buried. When you think about it, if this pot's placed in the ground and it's not moved, then obviously there might be some trace elements of what this once contained actually still in there, right? So this is an intact Samian bowl with maker's mark, and there's the maker's mark. There it is. And there's one thing about Samian ware, right? We're not really going to do a talk on that now, but from the design, from the form of the pot and being intact and the maker's mark, it's likely that we could work out where this was made precisely in France, who made it, because you've got the stamp on it, and approximately within a few years of when this was made. That's what Roman Samian ware can give us, precise detail. So an intact Samian ware bowl, and look at this next object, and the last object from our presentation tonight. Look at that. Now, excuse me, but that is unbelievable. Indented blue-green glass cup dating from roughly around maybe about 250, 300, right? that is absolutely beautiful, beautiful. And Drina, I'm going to say it right. That's as beautiful as anything you're going to find in Germany from the Roman period. Beautiful. And so the final thing to be said about this, it is with projects like the A66 Northern Transpennine Project, where archaeologists get the opportunity to uncover such important sites that through analysis and time will continue to provide an insight into the past. For many archaeologists, these kinds of sites are a once in a lifetime opportunity, a privilege to be a part of, and an incredible experience for all involved. So if anyone wants to see this, the full series of this, it's, if you look up Digging for Britain on BBC iPlayer, season 13, episode 1. It's nearly been going as long as Time Team went with Channel 4, but obviously Time Team's now back anyway now. So again, Digging for Britain, BBC One iPlayer, season 13, episode 1, and this piece of glass, this wonderful piece of glass. And for me to one thing I'd like to say is you might be thinking, what is Oxford Cotswold Archaeology doing digging up north, right? We're contractual, so archaeologists might have their base in Kent, but they've been asked by your council, because they can put a better quote in, to do the archaeological work. I used to do this type of thing, and different people from different parts of the country would do different parts of work wherever they are, and it's probably the northern section of Oxford Cotswold Archaeology that's doing this rather than the southern one, because obviously there's a lot of travel. So hopefully that's explained that. And
just to add to that, Carl.
Yep.
There was a Oxford Archaeology North at Lancaster, which is still there, but I think they all became Oxford Archaeology again after that. So I'm a little confused with the Cotswold thing. I know that's what they're calling it, and that's what they said at the talk, but I was told last year that they'd all just become Oxford Archaeology. So I don't know what's going on with that. Because the people I knew were from Lancaster that were on it. So,
to be honest with you, Andy, I got the same problem, because I was filing reports with Dyfed Archaeological Trust, and then the next thing, the staff have gone, and they've moved over to a new organisation called HENEB that's absorbed all the 4 archaeological trusts.
yeah.
And I've been writing to somebody for a year, and another woman contacts me and say, oh, actually she left 6 months ago. And it's just like, oh, great. It's a bit of a mess, Andy, all over.
It is. Well, one thing is that they were getting loads of things like that glass out, and really beautiful Samian bowls, and nearly all of them were complete. It was really stunning artifacts.
Stunning. Yeah, totally stunning. And it's you know, it's the one this is developer funded, but when it's like the developer says, hang on a minute, you know, we didn't expect all this to be found, we can't be expected to fund all of this, and that's when we get places, companies like English Heritage saying, actually we'll help you out a little bit more with some of the lab work. So lots of archaeologists involved in this type of work, and it's strange times, folks, because it's not, you know, the planning process has changed. Archaeologists are not needed for all work now, and things are going to be lost, but what do I know? Politics. Right, okay then, let's see if there's any. It's we're going to be finishing early tonight, and Will's gone again.
Yeah, Will never got back in. He applied to come in, and I pressed the admit, and then he disappeared again.
Oh,
Well, I don't know what's going on there. I'm guessing he's struggling at his end, because it's I've not seen it come up since.
I think Margaret upset him. That's what it was.
it's always my fault.
Why not? Look, I can't blame Drina, because she's got nice glasses.
I blame it on Trump. As soon as we were talking about Iran and what was going on and the price of fuel and things, he got cut off.
We've all been tangoed, haven't we?
Absolutely.
Talking about tango in Paris, Margaret.
I love the Roman glass.
Yeah, we should don't worry, we should do more of that. Roman glass, brooches.
I saw that sometimes if it's been buried for a long time, Roman glass, and it's decomposed a bit, it can get like a rainbowy
Patina.
effect on it.
Yeah.
It's called a patina. Yeah. And yeah, the problem, it's not just that, Margaret, at all. You can get, I've handled some glass from the Tudor period, right? And you don't wash it, because when you wash it, the patina is actually comes off in layers, and what you're left with is like a bubbly core of material of glass, right? Because the patina is actually the surface of the glass that's decayed so much that it is just come off. It's not exactly the same with the Roman stuff, but with sort of Tudor stuff, you know, so what you're left with is a really thin layer of glass. But yeah, you do get that with Roman glass, but the basically you get like a flaky. You can get this with glass from even the 1800s. You get like a flaky sheen on it, which you rub off, and it. But what you're doing is you're actually removing the surface of the glass.
Yeah, like a pearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're removing. It's the same. It's the same with iron, right? What happens is the iron itself decomposes. And the iron tries to get back to its original state. So what it does, it absorbs soil and material from around, and it gathers it into the iron, right? So when you're removing that sort of layer that you think is an iron, what you're doing is actually removing the layer of the iron, right, which is encrusted with all this stuff. But unless you do that, you've got no idea of the object that you're seeing. But in turn, you are actually destroying the object by getting rid of the iron. But there's no sense in that iron anymore on the surface. Andy knows this from nautical stuff. Iron down there, right? The object that you say if you're lifting a cannonball, for example, and say the cannonball's like a pound cannonball. By the time you've taken all the crud off it that's decayed, that cannonball is no longer a pound in weight, because the iron, the Sesky oxides are trying to get back to their original iron oxide state. And they basically, iron oxide is earth, isn't it? So it's trying to get back to the earth, so it drags in, and that's basically what's happening. It's the same with it's basically the difference between Roman glass is a lot better made than, say, Tudor glass, right? That's because you get less patina, but Tudor glass you get a lot of patina. It's just really not good.
They had a cannonball from the Vassar that was a 10-pound cannonball, and it weighed 2 pounds because it depleted it that much underwater before they brought it up. It's still beautiful round cannonball, but just not iron, not there.
Just a little bit of iron, but not a lot.
No.
Right.
Easier to handle and less dangerous.
Yeah, well,
Don't want to drop a 10-pound one on your foot.
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. No. 10 pound. Oh God, that's going to be heavy, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, you'd know about it.
Yeah. Anything else from you, Margaret?
No, it's all very good.
All very good. All for the good of the country, and as I would say, totally incorrect. All for the good of the country and the Third Reich. Let's crack on. Oh, that was naughty then, wasn't it? Andy, don't mention the
Don't mention the war. No.
Yeah.
I was reading about in the last war they had something called a Baedeker. They bombed all our historical.
The Baedeker books, yeah, I've got a copy. There was a German, yeah, it was basically
the raids, Baedeker raids.
Yeah, it basically they had these books which had maps of all the towns and stuff in Britain, right? And you'd give these to the bomber crews, and they would just open the maps and say, "Oh, there's the industrial zone there," using the Baedeker books, right?
Yeah.
And I bought one copy for my son. I had a copy, and it was beautiful books. but most of the stuff in those Baedeker books isn't there anymore because the Germans bombed them all.
Stinkers.
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 Well, whatever this is the thing. If you ever see a Russian making a map of anywhere in Cumbria, right, or there's a Russian book which has all the places in Britain in it, you know what's happening.
What would be the monument you'd be most upset about if it was bombed?
Oh my God, what an interesting question. Hang on, what would be the monument I'd be most upset about if it was bombed? York, all of York.
All of York. Well, that
Yeah.
would have been bombed in the war, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it was because the planes would have gone off from the bombing raids from Hull. Hull was completely leveled.
Yeah.
So yeah, we accidentally bombed York on the way back from Hull, and it's like, yeah, you must have got a bit confused.
I think we'd be upset if they bombed Stonehenge.
Oh, it would survive.
Yeah.
No, we'd be very upset if they did that.
Or at least it'd be free for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, Margaret, you're done. So anything from you, Drina?
No, nothing tonight. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. And me and Michelle are gonna have a piece of cake after this. In we, Michelle. Yeah, and a cup of tea. Right. Okay. Thank you, Drina. We'll have Andy, and then we'll have Judith. Mrs. Fraggle. Andy.
Yeah, only the A66. One of the more interesting things this time round was that it had been thought of as only as a Roman burial, although over quite a couple of centuries. Was that they took it back earlier to the Bronze Age. This time with some other burials that were mixed in with them, so which was kind of interesting. There were a lot of different styles of burial, which was really quite interesting. Not just inhumations or cremations, but combinations of and different varieties of and different alignments and that. So, but yeah, especially with going into the Bronze Age stuff and Iron Age.
I'm glad you mentioned this thing about alignments because that age-old thing that people used to say, oh, if it's east-west, west-east, it's obviously a Christian burial. If it's south-north, then it's obviously pagan. And then I'm reminded that in Wales, there are churches that are aligned south-north. And you're thinking, hang on, the burials are aligned, so that can't be right. And it's like that rule of thumb doesn't work anymore. It really doesn't. No. It used to, but it don't because it just don't. Oh, I say it's like the thing. I don't know this, so I am fact checked this, but aren't Muslims allied to the East? So in the theory that if they're buried, we would assume they're Christian, but in fact they're not. Is that the case?
I don't know about that. I don't know about Muslim burial.
Yeah.
I had heard something shouting in the back of my head about them facing east.
Yeah.
But not necessarily east-west alignment like the traditional Christian burial. But I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. Presumption is not the god of archaeology. In other words,
I'm sure they had different styles as well, like we have. So.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for that, Andy. Finally, Judith.
No, nothing from me, thank you. That was some interesting finds, though, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Gorgeous. We'll have to try and find a few more Roman roads in Yorkshire.
Yeah, we need a set of 6 of those glasses, like we used to get with Green Shield stamps.
Oh yeah,
those were the days,
weren't they?
I'm sure they were still doing Green Shield stamps in the 80s. Yeah.
Oh, they were. Yeah, right up until the mid-80s, I think.
Did you ever remember collecting those cigarette cards?
Yeah.
No, I remember my dad getting the glasses from the garage though.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. I used to collect the cigarette cards, and I used to have a few free things from it. Until one day I had a letter back saying we don't do this anymore.
Ah.
I had a full set of from bubblegum things, I think it
Oh,
was,
yeah, I was never
of the
around bubblegum.
Beatles. And I had the
Wow.
full set.
Hmm?
And when I moved away, my mum threw them away. They'd be
No.
worth a fortune now.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
and we all live in a yellow submarine.
She
With
gave my teddy bear away to the boy up the road. I was
Oh,
really upset.
Oh,
that's awful. Yes.
Isn't that
yeah.
dreadful?
We had a friend who's, I think it was her uncle was the road manager with the Beatles. So they used to babysit now and again, and she had a biscuit tin with signed pictures in, and her mum gave them away. And then
Oh,
like
mothers, hey?
1,000. I think she's got about 3 or 4 left. That's it. Yeah. So, but yes, yeah, Karen's mum gave all her toys away to the kid across the road. I mean, the kid across the road, I'm sure, enjoyed them, but she's thinking, but that that was special to me. Well, you left it behind. Well, yeah, I left it there because it was to be safe.
Yeah. Well, I love my teddy bear.
Yeah.
Isn't that dreadful?
Yeah.
I dropped a teddy bear. I was in the street one day. I was crying for days. I remember that.
Mm.
My mum gave one of my little model Komodo dragons to the neighbour's boy to play with it, and I did have it back, but it was ruined after that. So
Mm.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. My mum gave a lot of my model cars away that I kept very carefully.
Oh,
Didn't have the boxes, but they were in a drawer. And she just thought, oh well, I'll give them to my cousin, my younger cousin, who just used to smash them into each other. I thought, oh, I had one like that. And I thought, oh God, that is mine. And some of them are now quite collectible, sadly.
yeah.
God.
oh, sorry, I brought that up.
Yeah, I wish.
Yeah.
Yeah. The big question is for Judith, right? Judith, what
Mm.
figure in Fraggle Rock would you prefer to be?
Do you know, I don't remember watching I remember them being on, but I don't remember watching them, if you know what I mean.
Well,
I don't remember any of the characters or the stories or anything.
There was a dopey dog called Sprocket.
I've got 2 dogs.
There was the Fraggles.
Oh, here's
right?
Will.
Yeah, got him in
And
this
there was the
time.
monsters.
Hello.
And
Hi,
there
Will.
was
Sorry.
Will.
Tried to admit you last time and it didn't work. But...
Well, we were just about to come to an end. So what we need to know is why you left us, and secondly, have you got any questions?
Right. I've been watching you on my phone, which has independent Wi-Fi. We have electricians out on the main road dealing with cable problems. They cut off our Wi-Fi, which has been up and down until this very minute. So I tried to get in, couldn't. Tried to get in on my phone, couldn't do that either. But I followed you on YouTube, direct live feed, listened to the glass. I made some comments. I also sent you a Facebook Messenger message to say, yeah, I've got a problem. Whatever. So I catch up. Good talk. I heard the comments. And Margaret, you will never upset me. Don't worry about it.
Well, I hope not.
Go and tell those guys outside. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so I'm good. Yeah, it's just technical problems due to the weather conditions from last night.
Yeah, yeah, Gary, I've just got those messages from you, Will, and checking in. Yeah, the blue glass, exactly. Oh, hang on. Islam, prayer, face to the east 5 times a day. But hang on, do they do that when they're dead?
Well, I suspect they face to the east on the same premise.
Yeah, but they can't pray 5 times a day when they're dead, can they?
I read the Quran 30 years ago and whatever goes with that, but that's a long time.
Ah, I wondered why somebody called you Muhammad the other day. Fair enough. Yeah, it's probably the beard, Muhammad. There you go. Right. On that note, does anyone want to say anything else before we finish?
No.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
Aha.
Oh, and we're just about to finish. Go on.
Actually, the videos I posted on your channel, I've also put on YouTube now under Rumney Virtual Tours International Global. So if anyone accesses YouTube and doesn't necessarily go to Facebook, they can go and look at the Richborough stuff. You mentioned about the potter's marks, the samples of coins, the samples of brooches. They're all in the 3 videos. I've given a summary of what's in each video. So there are 3 videos and there's a summary. So, and it's in black and white, of course, because it was 1850 printing. But it's there if they want to look at it before next time.
Lovely, I might have a look at that.
Yeah, it'll be on the obviously it's on the Facebook page. I don't know if you're on a Facebook page.
But
Judy.
YouTube.
No, not Facebook.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's
On
posted
YouTube.
yeah.
Rumney Virtual Tours International and Global will get you there.
Brilliant.
And don't forget to subscribe and like to his channel, Judith.
Yeah, I think I already am subscribed. I haven't watched a lot of YouTube lately.
All right, fair
I will
enough.
have a look.
I haven't had your
Thank you very much.
comment. All right then. Anyway, that's great. We've managed to do 10:05 anyway, even though I said I was going to finish early today. So I got to pick up I got to take my car to be done tomorrow because the brake pads and the discs need changing rapidly. So there you go. £200 down, but that's life. Anyway, I'm going to say thank you for joining us tonight, and I will see you all next Tuesday. So I'm going to say good night to Drina, Margaret, Will, Andy, and Judith, and anyone else who knows me. Take care. Night, folks.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Bye.
Will and Judith. Night.
Bye.
All for the good of the country. Night. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, people, and let's just see on the chat box. Nothing there on chat 1, 2, 3. Nothing on chat 4, 5, 6. And nothing on 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 1, 2, 3. Diolch yn fawr i chi. Nos da.